Hey everybody, how you doing? It's been too long since I last had a live stream devoted to the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. And if you said, Zenny, it seems like you diminished since the Raiders left Oakland for Las Vegas, my argument would be no, I really didn't. I covered the team and I made live streams about the team, as you know, all the way through to the NFL owners meeting where I had broadcast live the announcement that the NFL allowed the Raiders to move from Oakland to Las Vegas. I was able to ask a question of Mark Davis during that event, which is here on Zinni 62 to this day. That occurred on the 26th of March of 2017. And I continued to live stream about the Las Vegas Raiders. Did I do so with the same type of passion that I did when they were the Oakland Raiders? No, I did not. I, I did not. But I did live stream about them and covered Raider issues at the NFL owners meeting as if they were still in Oakland. Because as far as I'm concerned, they will always be the Oakland Raiders. And so now I'm back. And others would say, well, isn't it because Mark Davis yelled at you at the NFL owners meeting in Orlando? No, that wasn't the issue either. And that was now what, 7 years ago, something like that. Um, I saw Mark a year ago at the Atlanta Fall NFL League meeting here in Buckhead. And as you can see on the video, which I might add, is 7 hours long. I believe it is the longest, in fact, I know it is the longest live stream ever made at an NFL owners meeting in NFL history, or period. Yeah, 7 continuous hours of action. If you would call me walking around on a cane action, but yeah, it was action. From meeting to meeting, you will come away with an idea of what it's like to attend an NFL owners meeting from a media perspective, which is great because the public is not allowed to come into an NFL owners meeting. So you would be enjoying a treat if you took time to watch it. Now, we talk about the Raiders again because people were saying, like, a number of pundits, a number of spokespeople, there are two major vloggers about the Raiders today. One of them is Samoan Raider, and who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, and the other is Mitchell Renz, who I have met and interviewed. Mitchell's a Mitch, a great guy. I do not agree with everything that he says, but that's the nature of the beast, as they say, right? He is, like me, a news commentator, and he is paid to render an opinion. Sometimes he deliberately renders an opinion that's a little edgy, but I get it. All right. Same is true with Samoan Raider and others that have come before them. And then there's me. Okay. I completely disagree with the idea that the Raiders are tanking. The Raiders have never tanked. Tanking, for those of you who don't know what that means that. Well, I'll give you a clear, concise example of what tanking means in NFL vernacular. Stephen Ross, owner of the Dolphins, person I know, friend, who actually has been really helpful to me in my business pursuits, has said to Brian Flores, this is all documented, when Brian Flores was coach of the Miami Dolphins, that he would pay him, I believe, $100,000 if he arranged it so that the Dolphins would lose their remaining games to achieve the position of the number one team in the NFL draft for the next year in position to get the first pick. And Brian Flores refused to do that. There are a number of reasons why he should have refused to do that. Among them is the position that, first of all, the owner makes that suggestion to you with the idea that you're not going to make the conversation public. But it also leaves you, the coach, in a vulnerable position where the owner could decide to get rid of you and say, well, the person wasn't winning games. Think about it, right? The person wasn't winning games. And so that means that you are in a position now, having lost the games that you were asked and paid to lose, of having that entire loyalty thrown right back at your face and used against you when it was convenient for the owner to do so. No one should put themselves in that position. Okay. There are a lot of reasons to simply not tank. Okay, so then let's say you get the number one position, but for reasons beyond your control, the person you thought was going to be available at number one decided at the last minute to skip the draft. Or the person that you thought was going to be available at number one had a bad injury or accident. Or the person that you thought was going to be available at number one was the focus of a bad report that led to their arrest. And all of a sudden, that person's stock drops like this. And that has happened. That happened, for example, to Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil was indeed all set to be the number one pick of this particular year. This was 2016 NFL draft in Chicago. And Tunsil, as we were sitting in the room waiting for the announcement, none other than Ian Rappaport came on the screen and said, and there are reports that Laramie Tunsil is in a video smoking a bong with a mask on. Okay, so finally, and I have the interview with Laramie Tunsil, which is being seen now, I think 500,000 times, because I was the first person to ask him, let alone to talk to him, when he came out to be interviewed by the press that day in Chicago. I said, after saying, welcome, young man, I said, what happened? And he explained it. Okay, he explained what happened. But by then, when he was drafted, he went down to the 10th pick. So the point that I'm making is that there are all kinds of reasons why this sort of maneuvering to get the number one pick isn't a good idea. Fans call for tanking because they think, oh, the rest of your season is done, and why bother playing? But that also shows a lack of understanding of the contract structure that individual players have, where, for example, they would get X number of dollars for Y number of yards or Z number of touchdowns. Well, suppose they get to the end of the year and they're looking at a position where they're like 5 yards away before the last game of nailing that trigger, either for touchdowns or for yards or both, right? So if you say, oh, hey, by the way, they shouldn't play anymore, and we should put on our second stringers, and you make a decision because you want to tank the team, you're hurting your own players' ability to reach their individual contract targets. And that is not going to put you in good stead with the very players you want to be happy to play for your organization. All right? So you just don't do it. And that does happen. Okay? It's not a position that you want to be in. So here we come with Maxx Crosby, and Crosby, the idea being put out there, the Raiders are going to hold Crosby back, and he's not going to play because he's a little banged up, and we just want to sit him out there, and that's it. And everybody went and ate it up and said, yeah, the Raiders are tanking, and they're going to engineer to lose to the New York Giants at home. That was what was put out there. So thankfully, Because my thought was the Raiders would never tank in Oakland. And Maxx Crosby is an Oakland Raider. I see Max as an Oakland Raider. I don't see him as an LA as a Las Vegas Raider. Nothing against Las Vegas, but look, there is nothing like the Coliseum's atmosphere. If you've never been to the Oakland Coliseum, there's nothing like it. You can see the videos right here at Zenny62 YouTube. All you have to do is type Zenny62 here in YouTube, Zenny62 Raiders game. Okay? And my video from the 2006 season, where I was at the Raiders game when the Colts came to play with Peyton Manning, is a classic example of how much fun and energy was in that building, that great Oakland Coliseum that still stands today and is crying for an NFL team. All right? But I digress. The Raiders put out this right here, if you haven't seen it before, and I think it's better to enlarge it, this one. Now, I know you can't read this entire uh, uh, if I zoom in, maybe you can read it. Let's get rid of that, and let's see how far we can go. And I believe we're making some progress. We might be able to read it, and I'll make it higher and a little higher too, right here. And I'll zoom in further. Well, that's as far as I can go. All right, is it? Let me try that one more. Yeah, that's as far as I can go. Okay, it reads, "We have made the decision to place Maxx Crosby on the reserve injured list for the remainder of the 2025 season. After deliberate and thorough consultation with multiple top medical professionals, it became clear that this decision is in the best interest of both the franchise and the player. Max is the ultimate warrior, and he has fought extremely hard to compete each week with his teammates since injuring his knee mid-season," which means he's been playing injured, folks, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. The statement goes on to read like this: "We are grateful for his extraordinary contributions. He is a true Raider on and off the field. We look forward to his leadership and toughness into 2026 and beyond." And folks, the Raiders made the right decision. They put out the right statement to basically quell all of this stuff about tanking and, you know, making a lot of comments, I think, that were just really insulting of both Max and the organization. The Raiders don't tank. The Raiders have never tanked. And tanking is not something that any team wants to be known for doing. It doesn't matter. It's out there. All right. All right. You think that made the Dolphins look good when Brian Flores put it out there that they were tanking or trying to? No, not at all. Okay. Not at all. All right. Okay. And so ML Football has an interesting tweet here that I want you to see right there. And it reads as follows. I'll put it down a little bit. Breaking superstar pass rusher Maxx Crosby was clearly sending a message to the Raiders today, posting videos on Instagram of him playing basketball and jumping on the trampoline. Crosby left the team after they placed him on injured reserve. Okay? Right. But keep in mind, folks, and I think this underscores the real issue. Yeah, Max wants to play. All right? But the Raiders are saying, hey, look, you're too injured to play again, so let's just put it out there. All right? But here's my question. If he's been injured, if he has been injured to the point where they did these medical evaluations, all right, and made this decision, then that means that Max has been playing at less than an optimal level for half the season. And it explains a lot of situations where you think, hey, Max could have made this play, or maybe Max was, because of the defensive alignment, not in the right position, and I think he got mad at Devin White for being not fast enough, although I can argue that White was also out of position because of the alignment. Need a new defensive coordinator, or at least a new approach with the current ones. One, all right, I'm not for firing people, but I am for ripping up a game plan and a game approach that's been used throughout the season for something that solves a problem, which the Raiders don't seem like they want to do all the time of late. But I digress. My point is, some of you are saying, wait a minute. What he is saying is, hey, look, I'm well enough to play. I can, you know, shoot this basket and everything else. But when I look at that, I see one thing. He is on a basketball court. He is not going up against a 300-pound offensive lineman trying to either stop the run because some stupid defense that he's being asked to play asks him the two gap, all right, or something else. So my point is, if we're not getting Maxx Crosby at full strength, if playing him indeed hurts the team, and that means that the Raiders would still lose even with him in there, okay? Even with him in there. And sometimes you have to tell a player when to throttle it down. And I believe that's the case here. The Raiders have made the calculated decision that, hey, look, they don't need to. It's not that they're trying to lose it, but yeah, they don't. The cold fact is they don't need to win the game. But the other colder fact is it would be nice if they went out with a win, and no one likes to go out a loser. Max doesn't want to go out a loser either. Okay, so there are both sides here, but I firmly assert that Maxx Crosby doesn't want to be seen as tanking, and the Raiders don't want to be seen as tanking. If the Raiders didn't care, they would not have put out the statement that they put out. Now, here's the other question. Are the New York Giants good enough for anyone to be concerned that they could really beat the Raiders? Well, let me ask you a question. When was the last time the New York Giants won a game? All right. When was the last time the New York Giants won a game? If I just go in and type NY Giants, right? Schedule, right? For 2025, I'll get a summary of what the Giants have done. Okay, regular season to date. Okay, and I'll scroll all the way down, and I'll say, okay, you ready? Okay, they play Las Vegas, CBS, 4:05 p.m. All right. Tickets, by the way, are still on sale for $64. Okay. Prior to that, Minnesota loss. They lost 16-13. Prior to that, they lost to the Washington Commanders, 29-21. Prior to that, they lost to the New England Patriots, 33-15. Prior to that, they lost to the Detroit Lions in overtime. Prior to that, they lost to the Green Bay Packers. All right, that's what the New York Giants have done. They have racked up. Let's see here. I mean, they have racked up 5 straight losses. Yeah, one. Yeah, excuse me. They lost to the Packers. Oh, before that, they lost to the Bears. They have lost to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've lost 9 straight times. The New York Giants have lost 9 straight times. So for anyone to think that the Raiders are automatically going to lose to the Giants because they left out Max, who's been, playing injured, is ridiculous. By all accounts, by all expectations, the Raiders should beat the Giants. I know there are those of you who don't want the Raiders to beat the Giants, but the Raiders should beat the Giants. Now, those of you like Samoan Rayer want the number 1 pick because you want Fernando Mendoza. But if the Giants have the number 1 pick, why would they take Fernando Mendoza as a quarterback when they just signed this year for the NFL draft, Jackson Dart, and they have him with the first rounders contract? Okay? Why do that? After all the hullabaloo about whether or not they're going to take Shooter Sanders, which they did not do, they took Jackson Dart instead. And by all accounts, given how Jackson's season has went, for the most part, fine. Now, why you would say, okay, if that's the case, Zinni, why did they lose so many games? Well, because they've got a guy who's a China doll, Jackson Dart, who plays a very rough-hewn style that gets him hurt and that gets him concussed. And it's why Jameis Winston was able to come in and play for 2 games that one against the Lions that the Giants should have won. And I contend they should have just left Jameis in there and let him finish the season. All right. They started off the season with Russell Wilson, but ultimately Russell's passing was inconsistent. You could also make the argument that their play design and play calling was less than inspired. It was like Brian Daboll, who was the coach at the time. He got fired roughly mid-season, was sending the message, hey, I really love I have this young white guy, because that's how he acted. He had a exciting black guy in Jameis Winston to get behind and everything else, but Daboll didn't do that. Brian with Jameis acted like he was so afraid that Jameis is going to throw one interception that he didn't want to play him. I mean, seriously, okay? Yet you have Jared Goff, who's thrown as many as 5 interceptions last year in one game. 5 interceptions in one game for the Lions, and no one talked about pulling Jared Goff. All right? Either during the game or after the game, heading into the next game, and so on. All right? So, this stuff is ridiculous. I don't want to get off on a rant about that. Back to the main point. The main point is that the New York Giants are not worth worrying about. The New York Giants are playing lousy football. They are playing uninspired. Their guy just got sacked, 5 times? I think Jackson did. I'm curious about this game because I believe that it may very well be that Jameis comes in as the backup, or it may be that they put in Jameis as a starter at the last minute. I don't know if there's any rubble to that, to that point. Let's check Twitter and type Jameis Winston and see. Okay. Um, um, I'm checking that too. And then I think something about Jameis Winston and Tom Brady. Okay, here. I don't see. Let me check latest results here. I'll share with you what I'm looking at right now. This is what I'm looking at. Okay, that's the Jameis Winston thread, and let's see here. Jay Cutler was the OG. There's a lot of just people talking about Jameis, but not in context of the Raiders game. And it says something about the Steelers 0-3 who beat them. Okay. And Brian Prescott. Jameis Winston declared he wants to be a Giants player for the rest of his career, helping Dart's development so you can have Wilson. And let's see here. Jameis Winston is a great interview. It's Cleveland. And so in other words, I don't see anything that has to do with Jameis Winston's role in this game. So let's type Jameis Winston and then Raiders. Well, it's Jameis Winston, Tom Brady. I don't know what that's about. And no, okay, that has nothing to do with the game. So let's type Jameis Winston Raiders. See if that. And this is the author, who I know, saying that the Raiders not only traded for, but extended Geno Smith rather than just signing Jameis Winston and using the additional draft capital to improve the roster. As sad as it is hilarious. Jameis is number 1 in the entire NFL in not just passing yards per start, but EPA, play and number 6 in the NFL in total QBR. That's true. Okay. Let's see, against the Jameis Winston Giants, Mason Rudolph Steers and the Commanders. That's another one. All right. So there's nothing here that indicates that Jameis is going to start in place of Jackson Dart. All right. So let's type Jackson Dart. All right. And see what the latest is on him. He is one of the picks to do well. And Jackson Dart says it would be huge to help Wardell Robinson get to 1,000 yards. And that's, hey, against the Raiders, really before to go out there and competing with him. And then they say they're talking about Jackson Dart, who's not accurate deep. That's I disagree. They say if you were concerned with Jackson Dart's performance this past Sunday, just watch the video here. And this person is saying that it's not his fault because of this line. It's just, Civ-like. But also, the problem there, as I see it, is that they're not throwing on time, all right? These guys are still running while he's stopped, okay? So it's a matter of offensive design. They're not giving him well-designed plays to run. And December 23rd says if Jackson Dart comes out this week and it's something like 17-24, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, that's 45 yards on the ground with rushing touchdown, the media will say, oh, it was just the Raiders. Okay, so there's that. All right, players to watch. And let's see here. Giants rookie Jackson Dart has been evaluated for a concussion in 5 of his first 10 NFL games. This, okay, folks, that is what I'm talking about, okay? And I contend that if Jackson Dart comes out of this game and Jameis Winston comes in, the Giants will have a better chance of beating the Raiders than with Jackson Dart in. There's a book on Jackson Dart. Everyone knows what it is. You just saw it with the Chicago Bears. Play up close, pressure, harass him, because the offensive line is going to just collapse like that. If the Raiders don't put out that kind of defensive game plan against the Giants, then I could see you making the argument that they were tanking, trying to give them a chance, right? But I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Raiders are not going to do that. The Raiders know the approach against Jackson Dart. They're going to use that approach. They're going to play tight. They're going to make absolutely certain that there's pressure up the middle. They're not going to do stupid blitzes because that hasn't been the Raiders' MO this year. I sometimes I think the kind of blitzes that I prefer, some others would call stupid. Like I prefer 7, 8, and occasionally 9-man blitzes. All right, overloading. Right, just me. Okay, just me. I come from the Buddy Ryan school of defense. At any rate, well, Buddy Ryan and Tom Landry. Think about that as a combination. So flex defense, gapping, pressure, all right. But do I think that it is quite possible that Jackson Dart will have a decent game against the Raiders? Again, I just can't see it. I'm sorry, folks. I can't see it. I'm not saying it won't happen. But the Giants have logged 9 straight losses. 9 straight losses. The Giants have lost 9 straight times. Okay? Including getting blown out by the Pats, right? 9 straight times. So why, on all of a sudden, on the final game of the year, should they suddenly catch religion Sunday, right, and win? I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that. Okay? Maybe somebody else can see that. I'm not seeing that as a possibility, and I wonder what others are saying here. Let's take a look at Twitter and see what comments are being made regarding the Raiders and Jackson Dart Raiders. Okay, I think the comments are okay. I saw that. I read that one. And let's see here. Let's see here. Nope. How about this? All right. Oh, Jackson Dart is flying to Africa? Oh boy. You'd think you'd see some tweets that have to do with the game. Okay, here we go. Honcho. The battle of ass for the number one pick is going to be a good one. Raiders have ruled out Maxx Crosby for the season, meaning there's damn near no pass rush. Raiders have put many players on the injured reserve to see what young guys they'll have for next season. This game being in Las Vegas also benefits the Giants, in my opinion, due to them not dealing with any type of weather conditions. There's one thing that won't be questionable tomorrow: Dart's effort and willingness to compete. Yeah, but if that's the case, then explain nine straight losses of the regular season. Willingness to compete is one thing, but you know what? I'll take the look. What this game? Ah, I can't see it. Let me see. Latest line. Latest line. No results on that. How about Giants? Raiders latest line. Let's see. Number one pick in the 2026 NFL Draft is on the line Sunday. The Raiders and the Giants appear to be acting accordingly. The tank is on. Raiders and Giants battle for number one pick. And let's see here. The number one pick ball. And injury report. Let's take a look at this injury report, right? We have the Raiders and Giants, all right? The Giants have more players injured than the Raiders, all right, by a lot. You see that list? Okay. Maybe you can't see this very well. Let me zoom in, all right? Does that help? Hold on a second. Let me zoom in here. Does that help? Right here? Nope. All right, let's try this way. View, zoom in. That helps. And that should really help right there, okay? I think, well, maybe it doesn't, all right? You can count. There are, in the practice report, only 6 players for the Raiders that are in the injury report for the Raiders. But by contrast, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Double the number. There's double the number of players on the Giants injured list for the Raiders. Okay? The double. All right? So you want to tell me that the Raiders are not going to win this game and the Giants have double the number of people injured? Which says, Raiders are not tanking. They're unfortunate to be this bad of a team. Sorry, Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, but we need a new coach and quarterback. I think we just got those two. And I think it's worth it that we stick it out with with a better offensive coordinator and an adjusted defense. Chip Kelly really owes Raider fans and the NFL an apology. Chip Kelly is not known for ball control passing. Chip Kelly is known for one thing, folks: bringing speed to football. He's known for having the fastest on a per play and total play basis offense in football history. That's Chip Kelly's gift. But if you take a look at his playbooks, they say nothing at all about pinpoint percentage passing, timing, nothing about mating steps to receiver like Bill Walsh. 1, 2, 3, 4. The whole idea of the 3, 5, and 7 step drop, that's Bill Walsh. The idea of sprinting out is Bill Walsh. What was the pass that Montana threw to Dwight Clark, sprint right. I think it was sprint right comeback. Um, and well, definitely sprint right. I don't know about the comeback, but Dwight Clark went out this way and then he came back that way. So you want to call back the comeback, fine. Then he catches the pass as a tie in the end zone, okay? Or you can try, let's see here, uh, the razor passes, which are quick passes in terminology. I can go on and on and on. Or how about just simply progressions? That comes from the success of the San Francisco 49ers under Bill Walsh with Joe Montana as quarterback using the progression system. And that became part of American culture. Now it's part of American culture. Every announcer refers to he's going through his progressions, even if even if the team that they're talking about doesn't really have a progression system. All right, they just say that. Announcers just say that to make you think they know what they're talking about when they made it not even most of the time looked at the team's playbook. Just saying. All right, just saying. Okay. Um, he says, I'm happy for Baltimore. Hope Shador and Cleveland could beat Steelers. That's going to be another game to watch, too. He says, yep, Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer need to stay in college. Yeah, but Chip really did us Raider fans bad. He really did. He put out the same plays that Chip Kelly put out the same plays. Get this. The same plays he ran at Ohio State. All right? Almost play for play. He came up with nothing new. And there were allegations that he was calling plays in games that they didn't even practice. I mean, how is that for not paying attention to what your players can do? How is that for not having a complete game plan to where you would do that to your player? All right? That's absolutely horrible. That's mean. It's like at the last second, it's like, you know what? I know this will work. Like he's thinking about it on the fly during the game, but he doesn't care that they didn't even practice it. All right? That's crazy stuff, man. Chicago versus San Francisco brings back so many 1980s NFL memories. Yeah, same here. Oh, the Walsh. Right. But my point is that Chip Kelly owes the Raiders and Mark Davis, starting from Mark Davis and the fans, all the way down to the equipment managers um, and everybody else, owes the people, he owes every hotel operator in Las Vegas and the South Valley region an apology because the amount of money that arguably Chip Kelly's lousy performance has cost them in not getting, as many people to fly to Las Vegas and come to the games because, hey, they're not winning, right? All that, okay? Pay up, Chip. Millions. Millions. Yeah, give back that 6 million Mark gave you. Bad stuff. He was the most expensive offensive coordinator in the league. $6 million for an offensive coordinator. As much money as many head coaches get. That's absolutely ridiculous, okay? Okay, you got head coaches getting at the college level now. I get it. My point is, it's dastardly to do that sort of thing. What Chip did. And yet that's what he did. He brought in this idea based totally on his resume, built up resume, that he would get it done. But if you take a hard look at his resume from the NFL perspective, Chip Kelly has no successful season outside the first handful of games of when he was with Philadelphia, all right? And they were using his system with not Carson, uh, the fellow who was drafted with Jared Goff, had the same agent as Jared Goff, who was the Eagles quarterback, Eagles QB injured, and Nick Foles took his place. Carson, And then, yeah, Carson. Oh boy, what is his name? Yeah, Nick Foles took his. I know it's. I can see his face. It's red. He's redheaded. But at uh, it was redheaded. What was it? Gosh, remember he played. Nick Foles took his place in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. He had a history of injuries there. Somebody has a history of quarterback injuries that I'm going through. Or maybe somebody's typed it out. Carson Wentz. Thank you. Carson Wentz. How can I? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Carson Wentz. Yeah. That was the year that Chip Kelly trotted out his new offense. And it worked for the first few games. Then guess what? The league that did what it does with every offense coordinator, do what I call a book, a statistical analysis of what they do on a per play basis, and snuffed it. All right. The only advantage they ever had, even during that year, was speed, but particularly that year. Okay. But has Chip ever gotten the team to the Super Bowl, to the NFC Championship? No, no, no. All right. Has Bill Walsh? Yes, yes, yes. So which system do you use? I choose anybody that's a disciple of Bill Walsh. Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, right? Now we've got the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Got for the Seahawks, okay? The Seahawks can wind up uh, with Clint Kubiak. I think Clint Kubiak is the best offensive coordinator in the league right now, outside of Josh McDaniels. And you would say, what? The former coach of the Raiders? Yeah, I get it. Okay. But yeah, look, you got to give Josh McDaniels his flowers for the job he's done with Drake, man. You got to do it. Anyway, I've got to get going to bed. Wait a minute, there's now 12 of you here. Hey, look, I'll be right back, folks. I got to check on something. I'll be right back. Hey, Mom. Are you okay? One Raiders fans talking about the game. You okay? You need anything? Yeah. That's why one of my viewers was telling me during the week, he goes, hey, you actually talking about this. Okay, coming back, folks. All right, I'm back, folks. Thanks for waiting. Thanks for waiting. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, yeah, Wentz. So as I was saying regarding Chip Kelly, he hasn't turned in that game. All right, and he owes Raider fans far and wide a giant apology for what he has done. Now, and yeah, Carson Wentz, he hasn't done that. Okay, now back to the matter of the of the Giants and the injury situation. Uh, so this was the latest, the latest one. What is this? Come on, don't do this. Where is this? Okay, it's top. The Giants have signed Ben Sauls, Elijah Chapman. You seeing this? The Giants have signed Ben Sauls, Elijah Chapman. This is what I'm reading right up here, okay, if you're on Twitter. The Giants have signed Ben Sauls, Elijah Chapman, Brian Hudson, and Raheem Lane from the practice squad to the main 53-man roster. They have elevated Dante Turbo Miller and Zach Davidson from the practice squad to the 53-man roster for Sunday's Week 17 game versus the Raiders. The Giants have also placed Andrew Thomas hamstring, John Michael Schmidt hand, Tyler Newman neck, and DJ Davidson neck and concussion on injured reserve, as that will end their 2025 seasons. Wow. Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. So interesting trade proposal. Going from 1 to 10, the Giants would probably want more from Miami, probably an additional second and third. All right, so now they're already negotiating. Okay. See, my thought on that is this. My thought on that is basically that, look, the Raiders are clearly in line to win this contest. The Giants are bringing in a bunch of scrubs, taking the field for the first time in the last game. What does that say? Does it say, oh, they're going to go out there and play their absolute hardest to make the team? No, it doesn't. It says they're getting an opportunity. Maybe something will happen at extraordinary, but that means that you have to come in and do something well that you haven't been able to do the entire season. Why? Because you didn't play. That's why. Search says, I hope Carolina wins the NFC South, and I hope Chicago gets number one NFC seed. I think the Super Bowl is going to be the Bears versus the Texans. Okay? I mean, the Texans basically ripped apart the Chargers, shocked the Chargers so bad that Jim Harbaugh didn't come out and shake DeMeco Ryans' hand. Or if he did, it sure as heck wasn't on camera, because we were treated with this scene of Mark Ryan looking around for we were treated with a scene of DeMeco Ryan looking around for Jim Harbaugh, like this, didn't even see him. So now I'm curious to find out, just for grins real quick, if they actually did. And I'll come back to the Raiders. I just want to find out if they actually did here. DeMeco Ryan. Let's see. DeMeco Ryans here. And yeah, how about DeMeco Ryans for Coach of the Year? Jim Harbaugh. All right. Let's see here. Latest. Oh, you know what? Look at this. I didn't know this. DeMeco Ryans. Did you all know this? DeMeco Ryans is 2-0 versus Jim Harbaugh. All right. Maybe that's why Jim didn't shake his hand a second time. He's 2-0. 2-0 versus Jim Harbaugh. Okay. And so let's see here. Head coaches to make playoffs in the first 3 seasons of Super Bowl era. DeMeco Ryans. Yep, he did. You got Bill Cowher, Dennis Green, Barry Switzer, and John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, Chuck Picano, Matt LaFleur. Hey, I don't see Ben. I don't see Ben here. I don't see the Bears head coach, right? The first three. Well, he's the first year. Yes, DeMeco Ryans outcoaches Jim Harbaugh, right? Where is the photograph that they got that they got together. I'm looking for any photo. I don't see any photo of them having shook hands. D'Amico Ryan's 1-0 versus Jim Hall 2-0. Oh, that was before the game. Okay. Let's see if there's media. See media. There's nothing. Nothing. Yeah, there's no picture of them together. All right. Let me see if that's not. Let me see if I go outside that and see if I can find an image of them shaking hands. Wow, look at this, folks. There's no, oh, maybe this is it. Here? That's the odds. This one was from their first meeting. Okay? All right? Don't see that at all. Jim Harbaugh takes on D'Amico Ryans. Let's see here. Jim Harbaugh post-game press conference versus the Texans. I can't play that because it's YouTube. If I play that as YouTube, I'll get a copyright ding, and I don't want a copyright ding, so I'll skip that. Let's see here. Final score: D'Amico Ryans compares Justin Herbert to Patrick. Let's see. I'm trying to find a picture. What I'm looking for is a photograph. And I don't see one here. Images. Yeah, I don't see one. Okay. So, bottom line is, not there. Does this mean that Harbaugh's a sore loser? I'm wondering if I can find the audio on Twitter. And if I get the audio on Twitter, I may be able to circumvent this whole copyright issue that I would certainly get with YouTube. Okay. I don't like copyright. So I don't get into copyright trouble. All right. Let's see here. We've got Snoop Dogg. D'Amico Ryans becomes only the 6th head coach. Can you see what I'm looking at here? You can't because I didn't put it right here. There it is. There. Sorry about that. D'Amico Ryans becomes only one of only 6 head coaches to clinch a playoff berth in each of his first 3 years as an NFL head coach. That's doing something. That's doing something. Bama. D'Amico Ryans to Lecrae on his leadership style. You can bring out the intensity. You can still bring the intensity and fire by being a Christian man. I'm not the old school coach that's cursing guys out, thank God. Guys don't respect that. And I feel like it's disrespectful to players. I'm going to be truthful, but respectful. I want to say something on that note. I think that's why Brent Venables, the head coach at Oklahoma, loses in big games. You have these scenes of him yelling at these players, yelling at the top of his lungs like he's losing it, okay? And then his assistants do the same thing on the sidelines, grabbing the players like this and talking to him like that. You expect to get something good out of a person by doing that? No. It doesn't happen this day and age. And that's why Venables, great schemes, great team performances, but when it comes to, when the road meets the road, doesn't do it. He says Crosby gets benched for being captain to the NFL and Raiders' worst defense in franchise history. Trade him. You want? Oh no, no, I cannot ride with that. Wait, okay, but let's talk about this. Why do you believe that Maxx Crosby? You just said it. Should be traded. You would say, I just said. You say Crosby gets benched for being captain to the NFL and Raiders' worst defense in franchise history. So because he's the captain, Captain means more. When you're promoted as captain, it doesn't mean you're superhuman. It means you're a leader. It means you set the tone for the attitude the defense. You set the tone for the other players. Maybe you're not physically the guy that can get it done all the time, but you know how to fire the players up and get them in the position to believe that they can get it done. That's Maxx Crosby. And Maxx Crosby has plays after plays, some plays of a superhuman nature over his career, enough for other players to look to him and say, this guy has been there in terms of high performance with the Raiders. He's done it. Unfortunately, Max doesn't have a ring. And that's where somebody would have it on Max saying, you know what? You don't have a ring, do you? Okay. And you were on the defense, and what's the old saw? Offense sells tickets, defense wins championships, right? All right. But see, I don't blame Max for that. I blame the coaches. And I blame the Raiders coaches for example, most of Max's history in Las Vegas, having these defensive fronts that had the linebackers, the middle linebackers, the inside linebackers, 5 yards back, basically giving up the run. That's what they were doing. They would never come up close and just, plug the sucker, right? No. That's the coach's fault. All right? That's the coach's fault. Now you would say, maybe they were preparing for the pass, but my whole point is this, all right? So the way that I think about defense, you don't stop the pass by allowing the run. You stop the pass by pressuring the quarterback to not throw. You stop the pass by pressuring the quarterback to not throw. Pressuring the quarterback to not throw will get you close enough to also stop the run. That's the old Floyd Peters philosophy. You would say, wait, Zenny, who's Floyd Peters? Floyd Peters was the legendary defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings who popularized single gap pass rushing. In other words, instead of the two gap where you're on a guy, you take either one way side or the other, right? No, you take one, go through one gap assigned, go through that gap, and you rush right through the quarterback. You don't stop to read, you go for the quarterback. The idea was that you would stop the run along the way. And hey, look, a lot of the time that worked. Not only that, it worked good enough to where the run was stopped for loss more often than not. Who honed and refined that approach was Tony Dungy and Monty Kiffin, and really before the two of them, George Perlis, when he was the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers during their glory years of the 70s, all right? So George Perlis taught Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy became head coach of the Buccaneers, brought the Perlis style with him, called it the Tampa 2 when he worked with Monty Kiffin to form the Tampa style of it. And their linchpin signature game was their contest in against in 1998 against the San Francisco 49ers in Tampa, where they sacked Steve Young 7 times and just snuffed out the Niners offense. Just fizzled out. I mean, it was, to this day, one of the most frightening and shocking, and I put it just like that, defensive performances I've ever seen. Right up there with what what the Ravens did to us in the first round of the AFC playoffs at the Coliseum in Oakland. I was there in 2001, and yeah, that was the game where Shannon Sharp caught what should have been really a 6-yard pass, but it turned into a 96-yard touchdown pass. 6-yard catch, 90-yard run. I remember I had tickets. My ticket was on the east side in section 221. 221, second deck. And I remember Shannon catching that pass, since I had pleasure of meeting him later through Mike Silver, my longtime friend from Cal, buddy. But who has a great book out, by the way, called The Why is Everything. You got to get it. The Why is Everything. But I digress. Caught the pass. I'm thinking, okay, they're going to stop him, right? They're going to stop. Nope. They're not going to stop. Oh, you got to be kidding me, man. Wow. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Ever. Folks, this is one of those streams I can go on and on and on and on and on. It's 2:15 in the morning. So I want to leave you with this video from the Raiders game at the Coliseum. For those of you who've never been to the Coliseum, never been to an Oakland Raiders game in Oakland, and there are a lot of you who fit that bill now for, obvious reasons, I want to take you to a Raiders game. I'm going to do that right now. Raiders game, Zinnies 2, and close out with that. It's called, this is 18 years ago, folks. Yeah. This is 18 years ago. I'm put it in theater mode. All right. Back this up. Put it right here. I've got to make an adjustment to the audio. So the quality is going to be a little bit diminished, but I've got to do it because StreamYard won't let me play it the other way. So first of all, let me remove that one. I'm removing this one, and then me adding to the stage. Hold on a second. Yeah, remove, and then it says add to the stage what? Where is it? Okay, I removed that one. All right. Then I add this to stop screen. There. Yeah. Then share screen. There it is now. And this is what you're going to see when I add it. It is called Day at the Raiders game. But what I'm going to do first is change the audio to off echo cancellation. You hear that? All right. Okay. So, okay. So the audio is going to be stereo. I'm going to refresh this a little bit. Okay, so now I'm back. Now I've got to re-add the video so you can hear it better. This is now on stereo sound, all right? There, okay. And we are now good to go. I'm going to start it up. Here we go. This is a day at the Oakland Raiders game. Raiders versus Colts, Oakland, Alameda County Coliseum, 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm at the Raiders game, and if you've never seen the Coliseum before, I'm going to take you around. Go Raiders and Colts.
Do you know about my city? The city of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Do you know about my city? The city of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Now let's take a little trip down memory lane, where brothers played nothing but the big game. 14 and 73rd, that's where the slinging through selling bird. And if you go to the brand new park, don't get caught slipping, quickly palming the caps a little watch after dark. And right across the way is a hood called Brookville, and all over the bay they all know about the 6ix9ine biz. Riding down MacArthur, don't get caught tricks, or you'll be sitting on bricks. My town is not big, you better believe it. If you slip, you're about to get dumped. This smoke in a place.
Introduce yourself. Hello, everybody. I'm Raider Moore, chairman of the board of the Raider Nation. What do you think of Lane Kiffin, and how's he doing this year?
Well, Lane Kiffin, rookie coach, learning on the job. He has to become a little more attack-oriented and go after people little bit more, let them make mistakes. He doesn't have the talent like New England and Indianapolis and/or Green Bay to do sustained drives. So he has to put the ball in the hands of his players to go after other teams and score some points through the air. I think if he learns to do that, he's going to be a good coach.
What about the Raiders defense?
Yeah, Raider defense last year wasn't really challenged. They played from behind a lot. A lot of times people sat on the ball. This year Raiders have been in games, so they're challenging them more. They realize they have a real problem stopping the run. 9 different rushers for 100 yards, 4.8 a carry every time someone touches the ball. And you can't win in the National Football League if you can stop the run. Other than that, good linebacking core, defensive secondary not bad, but they have to get a free safety next year, and it's not going to be Stuart Swag.
Hey, how do people find you? You have a website?
Don't have a website, but I'm going to have one coming up, RaiderMort.com, within a couple of months.
You're also on the JT the Brick Show, right?
JT the Brick Show, Gary Randis talking sports.
I like the Brick Show. He's a broke Hall of Fame football. Yeah, he went to the Hall of Fame, huh?
Hall of Fame 2001. Went back there for a week. They have a chili cook-off from Monday through Friday. Big dinner on Friday. They had the Hall of Fame parade on Saturday in those days. The players were inducted on Saturday and the fans were inducted on Sunday. And you get introduced at halftime to the Hall of Fame game. Can't beat that a lot of times.
Okay, thank you.
Bobo, Frank, Isaac, Ronnie, Benny, Lil Willie, Eddie, Moochie, Robert Jr. and Kevin Devereaux, Tim Garrett, Jenna, Johnny Lee Jr., Maurice Rice, Dwayne Lizard, Johnny Ray, Howard Jr., Keith Smothers, Black Pearl, Sim, Mike Whitaker, the Robersons, Louis Penny, the Striplers, Charlie Boyd, Jojo, Kevin Rogers, Lamont Debonair, Prince Charles, Brian Davis, Killer Weed, Frosty Juice, Kevin and Kim Turk. You gotta be down when you're from the town. I said you gotta be down. Y'all see it. You gotta be down when you're from the town. You gotta be down when you're from the town. Oaktown. Do you know about my city? The city of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Do you know about my city? The city of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Oh, don't you know? You gotta be down when you're from the town. I said you gotta be down when you're from the town. Oaktown.
Raider legends. You would have been a Baltimore. Boris Bradshaw, Charlie Santana. Yeah. Say hi, guys. Merry Christmas, guys.
Happy holidays, Sammy. I love you, man.
All right, guys. Oh, wait. Okay, go again. Talk. Please. So how are the Raiders from this year? How you guys? What do you guys think about the Raiders?
Getting ready for next year.
Yeah.
Prepping up.
Yeah.
Looking good today.
Yeah. Boris, you want to suit up and get out there again?
Sure.
Okay.
That was the longest drive that I did.
99 yards. That was great.
When's
Yeah.
the last time they did that? I don't know.
I can't
I think
remember.
Morse needs to dig in the books to find out. I want to
Yeah.
go back to I would have been
Thanks. Thanks.
City of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Do you know about my city? The city of Oak. Oh, don't you know? Don't you know? You gotta be down when you're from the town. I said you gotta be down when you're from the town. Oaktown. Yeah, let me give out some more shots to my high-speed bank boys, my high-speed OG partners, Tom, Steve, Biggie, Ray, Lorenzo, Clovis, Big Lou, Chris, KB, Dan Hall, Zach Hewitt, Zach Attack, Lil Vic, Donald Mac, D, Greg Barnes, Patrick and Ernest Dilworth, Kim Mack, John, The Marable, Cavalier, my little partner, straight love from the heart, Greg, Lil Sean, Dabo, and Paul, the high-speed OGs. And I love the rest of y'all too, and you know it's all good.
Folks, that was a ton of fun, man. That was a ton of fun. And thank you for watching that with me. I can't get enough of that. I did that with old tape with a Sony camcorder. But I got more videos like that from Raider games. I think what I'm going to do one day is go back and piece those together in a different way so you can get an idea what It's like to go soup to nuts from going in, getting breakfast, going to a tailgate before that, then going in there and then coming out or hanging out at the West Side Club and going to a party. I There's a way to do that with one video. Of course, it would be, piecing together different videos, right, from different times, different games. But it was a lot of fun. It really was, and it's a net loss to the Oakland community. The Raiders are not in Oakland, and it is no surprise to me, and it is sad that the silver and black are not performing as well in Las Vegas because there's no community of people that grew up with the Raiders there. All right? That's the big difference. When the Raiders left for LA the first time, they had the same problem. The first year everything was, oh, this is better. They didn't get the agreements that they were promised by the LA County Coliseum Commission. And then, of course, the team started to perform less well because LA community wasn't as tied in to the Raiders. But the Raiders, and this says, oh, Raiders, thank you. Yeah, tailgates were absolutely crazy. The Raiders started in Oakland, 1960. And Raiders started in Oakland just at the time when Oakland itself was beginning to develop the identity that it's known for now. The Black Panthers had emerged in Oakland during the same time the Raiders emerged during the 60s and the Civil Rights Movement. And the way Oakland's designed as a city allows for it to be a city of now 400,000, but it feels like a city of 40,000. Yeah. And it is very easy to know everybody of importance in Oakland like that. Just easy. And it's because you have the flatlands and it's the hills right above it, and the hills are accessible. I don't know of any other city where you can argue that the city you can see from one vantage point, look at it and say, oh, there's all of Oakland. It really is small like that. Okay? It really is small like that. And that's what brings this togetherness that exists to this day. But to not have a Major League Baseball team, NBA team, or NFL team, specifically the A's, the Warriors, and the Raiders in Oakland at the Coliseum, has damaged Oakland. It's responsible for a 30% passenger traffic loss at Oakland International Airport. That's a fact, okay? It is responsible for the collapse of the hotel industry because, think about it, people got used to flying in or driving in to Oakland and they could say, oh, hey, we can go on vacation, then go to Fisherman's Wharf and everything else, or go Jack London Square, or both, make a weekend of it, right? The hotels were there that allowed that in Oakland. We didn't have enough of them. We didn't work to build Oakland into a tourist destination around sports at all. We put zero effort into it, zero thought. I'm the only person in Oakland's history to have even formed a bid to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. We lost to Jacksonville for the right to host the 2005 Super Bowl at the Fall NFL Owners Meeting here in Atlanta in the year 2000, all right? There was a time that defined my life, okay? My life. And he says, neither did the A's. I believe the A's coming to Las Vegas also could be wrong. The incentives should not be. And there's the difference, okay? There is one net plus I have to admit to. The Raiders are worth $6 billion now. Closer to $7 billion. And that will continue. Now, the question is, would the Raiders have been worth the same amount in Oakland? I argue yes, because of the way NFL teams increase in value to begin with. But Mark Davis said something at the NFL owners meeting. Not the NFL, excuse me, the sponsor party that I was invited to in 2019 at what was then called the Delano Hotel and at something called the Skyfall Lounge. Actually, I have that on video, but I digress. He pointed out, I don't have this part on video, but he did point out to the crowd, we were high up, like I think 21 stories. And you could see the Las Vegas Strip, and he said, look at all that. It's called activation. In other words, activation for sponsorships, you see them as marquees. Hey, Raiders playing here, or hey, the classic one is Sinatra and Davis and Martin performing at the Sands, marquees like that, right? Activations. He's saying that partnerships and money are from there, and those opportunities are there, and he's right. And that's why, and I believe that the Athletics are going to clear $700 million from Las Vegas in year one, all right? Because of the fact that it's a destination. And people forget that sports are destinations for people. Sports activities, contests, people fly thousands of miles to go to these. They pay top dollar to be at them. And at the very time sports tourism actually became a separate activity that now is considered an industry, the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, starting in 2015, started arguing with each other at a high level. Nate Miley, I believe it was on May 12th of that year, put out a press release saying, hey, look, we want to split from the city of Oakland. And to this day, Nate asked me, why I thought that was a bad idea. I said, because we the city of Oakland needed the county of Alameda and its credit base to finance a credible deal to build a stadium for the Raiders. And you sent the message that, hey, look, you don't care. He says, we're tired of being in the sports industry, in the sports business. I said, Nate, he's supervisor, Alameda County supervisor, formerly Oakland City Council member, great one too. Nate's a great guy. I love Nate, okay? But this is family stuff. I said to Nate, you gotta understand something. You're not in the sports business. You're in the facilities business. You're in the business of building facilities that have these events. You don't own the sports team. You're not Al Davis, okay? You're not Joe Lacob, okay? You're not the Haas family or John Fisher, all right? And that's the difference, folks. Politically, Oakland leaders don't act like that. They act like, oh, I'm just as tough as you now. No. They have a business, you have government. They have the team, you have the facility. There you go. All right, folks. Time for me to go to bed. I'll see you. Thank you. And please subscribe to Zenny62. And hey, you know what? Donate, too. If you love with this content, buy a membership into this. And share this video around. All right. Thank you. That ends this stream.